we're bringing you into it as well. So basically, your success stories, your unique challenges, especially women organizations, your impacts in doing this. The second bit, we talk about the issue of men. Now, when we get to that session, I'm going to take 3 quick contributions from the delegates before I actually come to my panelists. So there'll be something more or less like a pre-plenary session on that particular topic. I know there's a lot of interest in it. And when we get there, today it's not just going to be whether women are less core, but we will need to sort of justify our positions when we make that kind of a session. And I think it's only fair that we do that. That said, I'd like to get a quick introduction from our panelists, basically their names, what they do, what the organizations are, and then we delve in.
Thank you. Hello, good morning, everybody. Distinguished guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to be with you today to learn from your experiences and to share with you the Algerian experience in fighting corruption and protecting women. My name is Nassima Hanafi. I'm from Algeria. I'm a Chief Executive Officer at the National Body for Prevention and Fight Corruption. I
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Emily Kwamboka. I'm a human rights activist. I live in Kenya. I'm from Kenya, from informal settlements. I'm not that good in English, so you guys will understand. Yeah, I'm a human rights activist.
Emily, I think I'm going to keep the mic with you. So let's start from here, actually. We're talking about efforts and initiatives of people at the front lines when it comes to fighting corruption. You work particularly at the sub-national level. So we're very interested, and you're also a woman, so we're interested in hearing about your initiatives, your efforts at fighting corruption at the national level, sorry, at the sub-national level, the sort of unique challenges that come on that terrain. So if you can share with us some success stories and some impact of your work.
had, in my opinion, a positive impact in reality. So I will talk what the Algerian government has had did from the beginning to empower women and to prevent and fight corruption. From the beginning, the Algerian government has understand and empower women and to protect women from corruption. But after the ratification of the United Nations Convention, the work has started to be increased, and we worked more and more in this field. The first thing started with a law, national law to prevent fight corruption in 2006. Who created two institutions, national institutions, one for prevention of corruption, especially in front of corruption. So they started to enact laws to protect them, and also the Algerian government has multiplied efforts to protect women and to empower her. It was first from changes has started with the amendment of the Algerian family law, where we saw that women have started to have more rights, and what her existing rights have started to be more protected. Also, the second important action was the creation of the Ministry of Women and Family. Also, there is a creation of National Family and Women Council. This council was dedicated to research in the field of women to promote women's rights in Algeria. The council has prepared many programs dedicated to women and the women's protection. It was also increasing the influence and the leadership and the participation of women in the making decisions. It worked also in eliminating all kinds of forms of discrimination against women and combat violence against her. In strengthening her financial independence. Also, it adopting the principle of equality in elaboration of programs, budgets, and statistics. In 2010, the Algerian government has implemented a 4 years national strategy to promote women integration. Also, a national program was dedicated to promote women's leadership and her participation in political and public life. It was also a joint program to promote gender equality and women's independence. As a result of all these actions, we saw that there is more women in parliament. From 7% of women in the parliament, after the enacted of the law in 2012, we found that there is 31% of women in parliament, which means that there is more issues. We'll talk more about the issues related to women and women leadership, and how we can empower her, and how we can give her access to a high position in the government. So women are started to be in the parliament to discuss how we can protect women, and women started to think how she can protect herself and protect her sister in the society. The number of women who get access to high position has increased. Girls have more access to education. We have now in Algeria 92% of girls who had access to education. The number of research about women has been also increased. Presence of women in almost all sectors. We can find women in all sectors, especially in public sectors. So after, for example, we couldn't find before, it was difficult for women before to work in police institution or in army. Now we can find women normally, they work easily with police and with army, and even they had like a high position in those sectors. Sorry, just a minute. Basically, this is the most important actions we had in Algeria. Thank you.
Quite a number of activists, Nassima. Did you say 31% of women in parliament? Sorry? 31% of women, of parliamentarians are women in Algeria.
We have, actually we have a quota, so we have, at least we must have 30% of women in parliament.
Okay, but how are you doing in reality on that?
This is the issue. From my personal perspective, I'm not okay with the quota, because I think that it's not about numbers, it's about quality. So if we have to educate women, then to empower her. Because from my own experience, I saw that there were cases where women was empowered, or we give her a higher position, not because she deserved that, but because we can easily manipulate her, use her, because we think that it's easy to manipulate her than a man. So I think that to give her that power, to give the power to anyone, basically is general a rule. To empower someone, we have to educate him. We have to show him how he can be a leader. So it's not enough to say we should give a quota of 30% for women to be in parliament at least. But before doing that, or at least in the same time, we should give them access to education, not any education, a good education. Education who can give her the opportunity to know, to learn, to be a leader in her society, to also to help other women in society, those who cannot take their rights by their hands.
Oh, thank you. I was in Algeria last month and on an AU platform, and the officials kept talking about the anti-corruption institution. They all seem very excited about the sort of model they have in Algeria, which gets me thinking, do you have that same excitement in terms of the general populace as well? How they're receiving some of these, what seems like deliberate policies? In the public, yes, among the general populace.
In my opinion, yes, in Algeria we had a lot of action to prevent and fight corruption. I agree with that. But I also think that there is a lot to do also. I mean, it's not enough. I mean, we have a lot of actions, yes, but we're still facing a corruption problem. So when you talk with the public, they're not satisfied. They still think that there is a big problem of corruption. We're trying to work now in my institution. We're working for to make programs to sensitive public, because come to our institution to report corruption action. Understand it more and to report it, to understand that the public is also responsible about corruption. It's not a matter of government only, it's a matter of public. We have to take the responsibility as citizens in Algeria and everywhere, I think, to say that corruption is not only the responsibility of government, but it's also a responsibility of each individual in the society. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's come to the issue of women's leadership and participation in anti-corruption initiatives, particularly the issue of leadership. And I think the key word there is about sustaining women's leadership. I believe somewhere around 2012 or earlier, in my country, Ghana, there was a big drive about getting women into local government, whether it's assembly women or members of parliament. And I believe in the first 2 years, there was quite some success in being able to do this. But you go back to the next elections, and then you realize that a lot of these women actually did lose their positions in those elections. So it sort of takes us back. And that's why we're talking about the issue of sustaining women's leadership. So I wanted to have your take on that. And this time I'll start with you, Aaron. What does it take? I mean, what are the issues there really about sustaining that particular leadership? Because it can be quite easy to get them in there, but it doesn't seem quite easy to sustain, them in those sort of positions.
When I speak of education, it's not just formal education. Women need to be aware of their roles, rights, and responsibility in society. We cannot demand those rights if we are not aware that they exist in the first place. So we need to firstly educate them on the awareness of those rights and also to be able to, contest for elected position, support them. There are policies, both legal and institutional policies, that kind of eliminate women in political parties, for example. What are we doing about that? Are we advocating to eradicate or eliminate the first female president in Africa, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf? There was this huge excitement. She came to power with a pool of women in our national legislature. But later on in 2011, when she contested for the second time, we realized there was this huge turnover. So what is the problem? So I believe we need to do more than just giving women handout. And like you said, it needs to be merited. The more we can support them, empower them, and ensure that they have the necessary tools that they need. And also ensure mentorship is very key, especially on the part of women. We need to mentor each other. That is very, very key. In my country, we realize that we have certain names. For example, big names, political, female in society. Now, what are they doing to be able to lift other women up? And so that the whole attention is not just around them. We need to build political institutions that are not just centered around individuals. So we need this whole movement. I think that would be my take.
Protect her from corruption. So start from educating her, giving access to education. Not only any kind of education, you have to provide her good education. And it's also in the hand of women. I think that to stay in this path, women has to understand that it's in their power to be leadership. They have to start to learn, to teach themselves, to learn, to not give up. It's really, we know, as a woman, as African, as Algerian, I know it's not easy. I have been in a situation where I was discriminated, so I know what's mean. I know when you have, you deserve something, but it goes to a man because you're a woman. I understand that. So it's in our hand. We should not give up. It's not in anyone's hands. It's in our hand as women, as Africans also. Thank you.
I'm going to look at this issue a little bit differently when I gauge Emily, whose work is more at the subnational level. But as long as we're on the national level, let me still talk about this. How does a woman sustain, especially someone in elected office, sustain a position in an environment where to get elected, you need to get dirty? Now, recent research in Ghana says that if you want to become MP, you need at least $150,000 US. A lot of that money is going to go into campaign. A lot of that money is not about billboard campaign. It's about, basically vote buying, being able to hand out, whether it's in cash or in little donations, and they have increased, really. I mean, we moved from times when it was just about T-shirts. Now, you're handing out mobile phones, massets. My ambassador said fridges. It comes to cars and TVs, and you are competing, basically. So it's about who is handing out the biggest issues, the biggest gifts, who gets elected. So if you're a woman, you find yourself in such a position, and you are competing in this environment where the rules really basically stipulate that to get there again, you need to get your hands dirty. Doesn't that come with a unique set of challenge that makes it very, very difficult for you? I mean, Aaron, Nasima, any of you want to, jump at this? Aaron, you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's about the mindset of society. Sustaining women in leadership has to do with the mindset of society. I'll give you an example. Right now in Liberia, there's a common saying that to have another female president is going to take another century. The mindset. And of corruption. She's sorry that she failed the Liberian people. And she went on. She said that I failed not because we did not have the institutions, not because we did not have the rules, regulations, and laws, but because people who occupy key positions in those institutions lack integrity. And so we need to change the mindset of society if we want to sustain women in leadership. Because the way we think we have different skills of, evaluating women and different skills for evaluating men. My colleague and I were just discussing yesterday, and sometimes the reason why people also regard women to be very straightforward is because the way society judge them. It's very important. And so we can have this conversation back to educate people and change their mindset. I think we'll be fighting a losing battle. So it goes back to what we said earlier. Awareness, education is key going forward. That's my take.
Moving forward, being able to carry on. You've already shared experience that sometimes that means being able to take money from out of your own pocket. So again, I see at some point there could be a tendency to say, well, I'm simply giving up on this. And especially if a bigger opportunity comes, a bigger offer comes, isn't it much easier to sort of jump onto that wagon than continue this, what seems like a very Herculean task?
First of all, I think we have a lot of organization which deals with the issues of the women. And a lot of people have been keeping forums, workshops in the community. The question is this: are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? Are we bringing